Hey Panthers fans, Chancellor Johnson here in Houston for the Texans versus Panthers joint practice, filling in for Chris Jenkins. If you haven't done so already, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I know Chris likes to get things started with some play-by-play action. For me, I'll give you some news and notes and things that I saw on the day. For starters, it was hot. Go figure. It's Houston. I mean, the sun was beaming down on players, but I thought the Panthers were able to manage it well. Now, it's important to note, Dave Canelis, of course, pointed it out that the Panthers, they start their season on the road in that hot and humid weather at Jacksonville. So today in Houston, it was a good early kind of test for what they are to expect in week one taking on the Jaguars. But he mentioned how some of the guys had to get some of their conditioning up preparing for that week one game on the road. Overall, I thought it was a pretty even matchup for both teams. I thought there was some really good work overall, as at the end of the day, what you want, the teams got better. No fights, one little skirmish, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. But starting with offensively, where I spent most of my time watching this Panthers offense go against one of what should be the best defenses in the National Football League in the Houston Texans D. I thought they held their own for the most part throughout. Bryce Young, he was able to find his targets, whether it was Xavier Legette or Terrell McMillan and even Adam Thielen. He was able to step up in the pocket when Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter were crashing on the edge. He was able to find his lanes, hit his targets. And to me, the two biggest plays of the day came and what Panthers fans want to see. One, starting off with Xavier Legette, who were down the sideline. Bryce Young was able to hook up with him as he mossed the guy right on his head top and came down with a touchdown pass. That was probably the best play of the day for this Panthers offense. And also, it was a play from the rookie, Terrell McMillan, who beat the All-Pro Derek Stingley Jr. on a over route, and he was able to pick up a nice chunk of yards on that play. So offensively, I thought that the O-line, they were able to hold up on their own for the most part. The Texans defensive line was able to get to Bryce Young, but he was able to escape and find his guys. But I thought they did a good job overall. That was offensively. Defensively, another even matchup. Here's a Texans offense that is working their way into a new offense under offensive coordinator Nick Caley, but the defense, they were really sticky in coverage. Great job on the back end by the Panthers secondary overall. I thought one thing that was probably disappointing if you're a Panthers fan is the Texans offensive line is not good, or they're not expected to be, but they really couldn't get after C.J. Stroud the way that I'm sure Panthers fans would have liked to have hoped and taken advantage of what is overall a pretty weak offensive front for the Texans offensive line. But overall, I thought, as I mentioned earlier, good work overall for the most part. And here was Dave Canelis on the job of his Panthers offense and defense.
What an amazing day. First and foremost, just a class act. You know, D'Amico Ryans, the Texans, their whole staff. They were so accommodating, and then I think just the culture that they're building here, their players, they got a talented football team. They played so hard. There was physical hits, great effort all across the field, and done with class. And I just really appreciated that part of it, and I was excited about the work we were able to get in. I saw good battles. They had their work's worth today with a fantastic group, you know, with Stingley and Lassiter and Petrie and Bullock back there. Sorry if I'm missing any of the other great players. They had a couple of, you know, players out there that were covering us tightly all day. Everything that we caught, we had to work for. It's such great work for us, you know, to be in that kind of a competitive environment that way. And you win some, you lose some, you got to go to the next play. So it was a great challenge for our guys.
Yeah, it's awesome. You know, there's a lot of guys that super close with. You know, I have some brothers on this team. And just us being able to live out our dreams is really cool. Both of us, when the plays are going out here, we're just here to compete.
That was, of course, head coach Dave Canelis and quarterback Bryce Young. The other thing that I thought was noteworthy for the Panthers was that they were able to get things going on the ground. They were able to pick up some chunk plays as well. And Dave Canelis also mentioned that on Saturday when they take on the Texans for their second preseason game, the starters, for the most part, will play. Now, another storyline that was pretty notable for the day was a form of reunions throughout for the Texans and the Panthers. Of course, for Bryce Young, he was able to reunite with some of his Alabama teammates, guys like Will Anderson Jr., John Mechie. Those two had a great connection while the two played for the Crimson Tide. And then, of course, the QB connection. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. These two players go way back. And in fact, they have a really great friendship and something that has actually been pretty well documented. And so they spent some time after practice was over, getting a chance to kind of catch up on things. Two guys who will forever be linked. Guys who went 1 and 2 in the draft in 2023. Guys who went on to be franchise leaders for their respective organizations. And something that I thought was interesting was that CJ Stroud said that Bryce Young is one of the best quarterbacks he's ever seen. And to be able to see his growth and to see how he's been able to develop now going into year 3 has been something he's really enjoyed watching from afar here in Houston. He also reflected on how back in the day, Bryce Young, as they competed when they were in Pee Wee football, used to whoop up on CJ Stroud, and he hasn't forgot about it. He also hasn't forgot about the rookie season when the Texans and the Panthers faced off against each other, and the Panthers got the best of the Texans. But as he mentioned, it's all love. They have a great friendship and a great relationship, and they wish each other well. All in all, a great day of work for both the Panthers and the Texans. Now, earlier on, I mentioned how there was a slight scuffle, and that featured number 7 for the Panthers as he laid out Xavier Hutchinson, who was coming across the middle. It was basically the last team session between the Panthers and the Texans. Hutch was making his way across the middle, caught an in-breaking route, and Trevon Moehrig was right there and hit him to the ground. The Texans, they didn't really like it, the Texans players that is. However, as I mentioned, it was a 2-minute drill. CJ Stroud came over and made sure to keep the peace and make sure that, hey guys, we have to get back to the line. The Panthers defenders, they were right there with their guy, making sure, hey, we not ducking any smoke, and then they were right there, but it was cleaned up pretty quickly, and they were able to get back to business as they closed things out for the remainder of practice. But that wraps things up here in Houston as the Panthers and the Texans joint practice has concluded, and we'll get things going looking ahead to Saturday's preseason game number 2. Once again, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.